Okay. Hello. Hi, everybody. I welcome, welcome. I am still getting used to figuring out the tech of this, so please just bear with me. Um, okay. So it looks like I am live on Instagram too. So I'm trying to go live on YouTube. I don't know if I'm on live on YouTube. I don't know if I'm allowed to go live on YouTube because I think you have to have a certain amount of subscribers to do that, but I don't know. We'll see. I think I might be. Oh, look, it says I am. Okay. Exciting. Awesome. Okay. Welcome. Thank you guys so much for taking the time out of your busy day, I'm sure, to hop on here with me today. Um, I'm really going to try to not say as much. It seems to be my favorite word when I am on camera, and I am really working on it. So just bear with me. I appreciate everyone being here. So, basically, for a recap, I've got my little handy dandy whiteboard here. So this is the ABCs of food allergies. Like, I don't see here, part two. Here we go. So last week I oh look, there's my ring light. Okay. Last week I touched on three things. I talked about anaphylaxis and anaphylactic shock. I talked about balance and like a food fear kind of way. And then I also touched a little bit on my daughter, Charlotte, who um, had life threatening food allergies. And so that's why I'm here today talking about this right now. It's a very important subject. And Food Allergy Awareness Week is coming up in about 4 weeks or so. And so, just in the weeks leading up to that, I am really feeling the call to um, spread awareness and talk about food allergies and living with food allergies as it pertains to my life and family. And so, I just want to make a note and just make this disclaimer that I am not a medical professional. I am not a medical expert in this field at all. This is just from my experience, my point of view as a food allergy mom and someone who has been taking care of someone with food allergies for the past 14 years, basically, since 2010 is when Charlotte was born. So yeah, so that's why I'm here. If you don't know, Charlotte suddenly and tragically passed away in October of 2022. I also want to state that this live is going to talk about hard things. I'm going to talk about death and child loss and a little bit and grief. And so I just want to preface that will be discussed a little bit because that's the reason I'm here. Because my daughter lost her life because she has food allergies. She had food allergies. So that's why I'm here. And so today I'm going to talk about specifically. I'm going to go through E. I'm going to go through the letters D, E, F, and G. And this ring light is really like not. Come on, come on. Okay, seriously. So I'm going to talk about dermatitis, which is another medical term and fancy word for eczema. I'm going to talk about epinephrine. I'm going to talk about EOE. I'm going to talk about food allergy versus food intolerance. And I'm going to touch on grief just a little bit. I know that is kind of a topic for another day, maybe to some, but I feel like it's important to just touch on that kind of at the end because, food allergies has led me to grief. And it's very much a part of my everyday life now. And it sucks. But um, I feel like it's important to, talk about it and just, you know, it's it's grief is what connects all of us because everyone experiences it at some point in their life. So just bear with me and I'm going to get to it. I have some notes here so I can reference and refer back to things because I'm a talker and I don't want to get off topic because I like to do that sometimes. So my notes will keep me in check. And so, yeah. So, the first letter that I referenced today was the letter D, and I want to talk about dermatitis, which is also another word for eczema. There are two types of dermatitis. There is contact dermatitis, and there is atopic dermatitis. Um, so I'm going to talk about the atopic one, and the reason I'm going to talk about that one is as it pertains to, my story and Charlotte's story, is that is how Charlotte's food allergies first manifested was through eczema, and so I touched on this a little bit last week. Charlotte was a newborn baby; she was about 5 weeks old, and she was having a hard time gaining weight. She was tiny. She started breaking out in eczema, like all over her little body, her cheeks. I mean, her arms, her legs, her back. And it was quite hard to control. I tried to do everything I could with, creams, and she was a brand new newborn, and so I didn't really know about putting, a steroid cream on a newborn. But I ended up taking her to her pediatrician, and her pediatrician told me to immediately take her to the ER. And what had happened is her eczema had become infected with staph. And so not only did she have eczema, but it was now infected. And, we didn't really know why. We knew that she wasn't gaining weight and she had what was diagnosed as a failure to thrive, which she was just not doing what a baby her age should be doing to, gain weight and grow and things like that. So, so with that, she was hospitalized. They through a process of elimination, did some testing with like infectious disease doctors and like all these things that they did to rule out like super serious diseases. And come to find out, they figured out that she had food allergies and she was being exposed to these allergens through my breast milk. And so once I tried to do like a really strict diet while she was there in the hospital so I could continue to nurse her, but it just didn't work out. It was really hard to keep up um, my milk supply as it was. And so they put her on a special formula for her benefit to, kick up her weight quicker. So she went on a special elemental formula, which really did help her. When she was there, like we had to do something that was actually quite scary for me, even as a mom. I mean, she was um, my fifth baby, and they're in the hospital. They're advising me to give her a bleach bath because that's what would kill the staph infection. And so I was like, what? I don't really want to do that. But the nurses and everything helped me. And there was a certain way that you did that and set that up. And they helped me with her while she was there in the hospital. She was there for probably 7 to 9 days the first time. And so, that kind of began our life with food allergies. And she was hospitalized again a couple weeks later because she kind of got like a rebound set of eczema. It wasn't as bad as the first time, but she only stayed for like maybe 3 days that time. But because she was so little, they wanted to keep an eye on her just to make sure she was moving in the right direction of healing. And so that is a chronic inflammatory type of eczema that is kind of linked to genetics, really. It's it, it it's kind of it affects your immune system, and that it can, if your immune system is already kind of compromised, I guess you're more susceptible to that, to eczema of that time of that kind. It does tend to run in families, and it will kind of manifest a reaction to triggers. And so certain triggers are allergens, irritants, and environment. Um, the symptoms can be like all the itch. I mean, if anybody has ever had eczema, um, it is it is very uncomfortable, and that you are super itchy most of the time. Um, and so that's a symptom. Inflamed skin. It can even become cracked and like ooze. Not to be gross, but it can happen. Um, Typical spots are elbows, knees, back, face can also have it. And they typically will come in flares. Like you'll flare up. Like you'll have a flare, you'll treat it, and it will kind of, you know, go into remission. I don't know if you call it going into remission, but it will just not be flared. It won't be as flared and as serious. And a lot of times creams, um, and different steroid creams can help, different topical creams that are prescription creams. And also you have to kind of use aquaphor and CeraVe or Eucerin or something like that that is not fragrant, to help with eczema. um, and then, so the triggers for atopic dermatitis, the more allergic type of eczema, are certain foods, environment, allergens such as like pollen and pet dander, even like harsh soaps that are super scented, or like laundry soap that is super, super strong with scent. That can also cause eczema flares. Like I know for our family, we have used like the free and clear laundry detergent for as long as I can remember. I don't buy the stuff that has the scents in it because it's harsh. And a couple of my children have eczema and have had eczema since they were little. So the changes in the weather can bring about a flare, and also stress. So yeah, so that's the allergic type of eczema that is kind of a systemic, immune response type. The second type of eczema or dermatitis is contact dermatitis, and that is normally localized to an area that has come into contact with something that has irritated the skin. Um, there's an irritant contact and there's an allergic contact. Harsh substances is typically an irritant one, while an allergic one is typically immune related. And like if you're like, for instance, my son has like a belt that has nickel on the clasp, and the nickel caused him to have eczema kind of right where the belt would sit, because sometimes it would hit his skin, and it would cause eczema on his stomach area where the belt clasp was. And so like things like that, like the certain cosmetics can also, if you've come into contact and you have certain cosmetics, that can cause a type of contact dermatitis as well. It's pretty similar to the symptoms of the atopic one, the allergic type: redness, itching, swelling. You can even blister. You can have a rash, that type of thing. And again, soaps, detergents, even poison ivy can cause an eczema type of an eczema-like type of rash. And then allergic examples, of course, are the metals. Latex is a big one. For example, this is kind of crazy too to think about. I was going to bring some latex balloons to, or I thought about it, to one of my high schoolers a couple years back, and the school was like, "You can't, because we have people in the school that are allergic to latex." And I mean, there's latex in so many things. I mean, especially balloons. You don't think about not bringing balloons around because somebody might be allergic to it, but they absolutely could be. And then sometimes fragrances can also cause someone, especially if they have asthma and they tend to wheeze or cough when they come around certain smells. That is more of an allergic response where that could cause even a skin irritation. Um, Preservatives like Red 40 um, and things like that, that can also cause somebody to have issues with their skin if they ingest that. As far as treatments for dermatitis, again, I just want to touch base. Like, I am not an expert. This is just stuff that I've discovered through meeting with my children's doctors and my own research. There are the ones that my kids basically used growing up were typically a steroid cream, unscented lotions and creams. Sometimes they would take an oatmeal bath, like if they were super flared. But now they have these things that are called biologics, which are like the Dupixent and I can't remember some of the names of the other ones, but they are a type of therapy used to treat many type of allergic, asthma, allergy related issues, nasal polyps, asthma, eosinophilic asthma, eczema, and there's different ones can kind of target different issues within that realm. And so yeah, so that's something new that wasn't always around. It's kind of a newer kind of treatment that's been um, brought about in the last few years. Okay, so I'm moving on to the letter E. So remember, we're talking about dermatitis. We just finished that. And now I'm going to talk about epinephrine followed by EOE. And EOE, I'll tell you about that. It's short for eosinophilic esophagitis, and I'll touch on that in a few minutes. So, so epinephrine it's an injection-based medicine that is meant to go in on the outer thigh. It's placed on the outer thigh, and a lot of times epinephrine packs will come with a trainer. I wish I had gotten the trainer for my kids, for my son's room. And the trainer is something that you can do to practice on, like if to practice on yourself. Because many times people do have to inject themselves with epinephrine. So the trainer helps you to figure out how to do that. And hold on a second. So, okay. I'm sorry. I was just checking something. So yes, so they come in 2 packs, and when you are given a shot of epinephrine, it is done in the thigh. And so you just take it, you push it down, you hold for a few seconds, and then you release. And when administering epinephrine, I just really want to stress how important the timing is in doing this. Timing is absolutely everything when it comes to an allergic reaction and having epinephrine handy and administered, because it is a life-saving medicine. And it is, I've learned so much about epinephrine, and since everything has happened with Charlotte, and I've heard these nonprofits and just people talk about EpiFast. I mean, it really is. It's the first line of care to help someone who's having an allergic reaction. So it's very important that people who have life-threatening food allergies, or even people who have allergies to insect stings, it's super important that they always have that with them, because if they don't, that's not good. It's always very important to be in the habit of carrying epinephrine with you when you have those medical issues. It can be an ant bite. It can be a bee sting. I mean, I'm assuming it can be a mosquito bite. I've seen people who've gotten bit by mosquitoes and they swell up like absolutely, you wouldn't even recognize them. So it's very important to be in the habit of carrying it if you have life-threatening food allergies, because it can save your life. and they do come in packs of 2, typically because it's not uncommon for somebody who has had an allergic reaction to have what is called a biphasic allergic reaction, and that means that usually anytime from the time shortly after the initial reaction up to 12 hours or so, another allergic reaction can occur. And so you always want to have that second EpiPen handy. And when you do, if and when that happens, it's best practice to place the other EpiPen, the second one, in the opposite thigh. And I did not know that until recently, that you were supposed to use the second EpiPen in the opposite thigh. I did not know that when someone has been administered epinephrine, that it is best for them to lay down on their back and raise their legs so that life-saving medicine can get to their vital organs. I did not know that. And so I've learned quite a bit about, I mean, I knew it was important, but I didn't know some of those other things until after everything had happened with my daughter Charlotte. Another thing about epinephrine is it's advised that you immediately go to the emergency room after you've been administered epinephrine, and then follow up with your allergy doctor or immunologist once you've uh, sought treatment at the ER. So I'm going to move on to. I know last week I didn't really do multiple words for the letters, but this week the epinephrine, I just thought that was really important to touch on that and talk about that. And then I'm bringing up the EOE, or also the eosinophilic esophagitis, because Charlotte had that condition. And so I just thought it was important because a lot of kids or people who have food allergies, and they have this condition, and I don't feel like it's really talked about a whole lot because they kind of can go hand in hand. I do have met some other moms, and I actually know another mom in Florida who has children with food allergies, life-threatening food allergies, and one of her sons has it. And so I just felt like it was important to just kind of touch on it today and kind of explain what it is. So maybe you're like, what in the name of Mike is an eosinophil, Portia? And let me explain it to you. So it's a type of white blood cell. And again, I'm not a doctor. This is just from the research that I have found, and this, from talking to my children's immunologist. It's also an immune cell, and it's it's kind of shaped in a way that it has granules that have enzymes within it that are released during infections, allergic reactions, and asthma. And so these cells line the esophagus. And when you have an overabundance of them, it leads to inflammation in your esophagus. And I did not know that Charlotte had this, but she got diagnosed with this as an infant. And so what had happened when she was about 18 months old, her allergy doctor recommended that she see a GI doctor, which is a gastrointestinal doctor, to test her for this because of how allergic of a kiddo she was. And so they did, they put her to sleep, and she had a scope done, and they took pictures of the lining of her esophagus. And then they looked at these pictures under a microscope and saw this overabundance of eosinophils in her esophagus. And that's how she was diagnosed with this condition. So just to give you an idea of how allergic of a kiddo Charlotte was. So back in June of 2022, this is just a little story kind of off the side here. Charlotte, we were getting ready to get her some allergy shots started because she had very crazy environmental allergies as well. And allergy shots are a type of immunotherapy that people who have allergies can do to kind of help keep them at bay. And so she had some labs done to kind of test her levels and her numbers and kind of see where we were at because we were having a really hard time controlling her asthma. Um, and so her eosinophil levels um, were 592 when we had them tested, and the normal range is between 15 to 500. So she was slightly above the normal range. Um, Another thing that they tested was immunoglobulin E, which is something that people who are allergic and have food allergies, it's called IgE, and it's something that is regularly tested. And so the normal range is less than 114, and Charlotte's was 2098. So that just gives you an idea of like those numbers and how allergic of a kiddo she was. Um, and so I'll get back to the EOE really quick. So we've got inflammation of the esophagus. Symptoms in kids can be reflux, abdominal pain, vomiting, kind of like regurgitating. I know that sounds kind of gross to say, but difficulty swallowing, not gaining weight, failure to thrive, which Charlotte did have when she was a lot smaller. But being on that special elemental formula really helped her to thrive when she was a baby. Many people who have EOE, excuse me, who have EOE have a family history of this condition. Um, I'm not aware of anybody else in our family that has been diagnosed with it. Um, Charlotte's father had pretty extensive food allergies as a child. I've got another son who has life-threatening food allergies, just like Charlotte, and I have a nephew who has a life-threatening peanut allergy. Sorry about the dinging here. Oh my gosh, seriously? Sorry, guys. Give me a second here. Okay, I apologize about that. So yeah. Um, So many people who have EOE just have that history of allergic issues in their family: asthma, rhinitis, food allergies, eczema. Um, so yeah, that's and Charlotte was diagnosed as a baby with that scope. Um, Treatments, the only treatments that I have really come across or used or needed for our situation was food elimination, food avoidance, and also there's just some anti-inflammatory meds like Prevacid um, to kind of help coat the esophagus. That over time that can help reduce that inflammation in the esophagus. And Charlotte did those treatments for a little bit when she was smaller for a while. We didn't continue them like regularly. We would take them and go off and take them and go off. Um and even as like she got older, Charlotte would sometimes say, like, Mom, I feel like I have heartburn. And like looking back on that now, like that was probably her EOE acting up. So yeah. And my daughter is texting me asking me for an assignment. Are you kidding me right now? This is not cool, Gracie. I'm sorry, guys. Hold on. Okay. Okay. So, I am she's asking me to go get something off her bedroom floors and take a picture of it. So if you'll just give me a second, I'm gonna go do that for her because it's for a grade, and I will be right back. Just hold on 1 second. Gracie, seriously. Okay. I apologize about that. I hope that's the right one. Okay. So the next letter that I wanted, thank you for bearing with me with that. When mother duty calls. So the next letter I wanted to go over with you was the letter F, and I wanted to kind of talk about a food allergy versus a food intolerance. And what one of the things that I um, have kind of learned and discovered through all of this is that um, a lot of times people don't know that there's a difference in those, and there certainly is. Um, so, so first, I'm going to talk about a food allergy, because that's most pertains most to like our story and our situation. So, a food allergy is a systemic immune reaction. It affects many systems in your body. And your immune system basically identifies a specific food, a protein within a specific food, as harmful or like a foreign body. Um, then this triggers a response and an uptick in antibody production, such as the IgE. I was telling you about the immunoglobulin E. It'll produce large amounts of that. Um, Symptoms can be mild to severe. You can have hives, you can have eczema, you could have angioedema, which is like a swelling of the lips and things, GI issues, respiratory issues, and even anaphylaxis, which is what I talked about last week. Um, an onset or like when it begins of a food allergy it usually happens within minutes, to up to an hour. Um, and so with that, there are many things and allergens that people can be allergic to. I mean, I've heard about people being allergic to avocado. I've heard about people being allergic to apples, bananas. I mean, there's many different foods that people can be allergic to. But there are nine main top allergens that are the most allergic ones that people are most allergic to, the most common. And that is milk, egg, peanut, soy, wheat, tree nut, shellfish, fish, and sesame. Those are the nine main ones that are typically people are allergic to. In Charlotte's instance, she was allergic to dairy, milk, nothing dairy, nothing baked with dairy in it. She could not have eggs baked or like cooked at like a scrambled egg. She was highly allergic to peanuts. She was highly allergic to tree nuts, and she was the last time she had blood work done, she was typically allergic to fish and shellfish. But those numbers, she never ate it. She never she was skin tested for it, but she was also had a blood test, and those numbers were not as high as like her other allergy ones, but she just avoided them because of how allergic of a kiddo she was. For example, Charlotte's little brother Brandon, he has the same food allergies that Charlotte does. He recently, this time last year, was able to complete a shrimp food challenge because those numbers in his skin test were at a point where his allergy doctor felt it would be safe for him to have a shrimp food challenge. But he did it in the doctor's office and he passed. So, but that's not something that Charlotte was a candidate for, because she was just really, really allergic. So moving on to food intolerance. So a food intolerance is not the same as a food allergy. Um, a food intolerance is basically when you have trouble digesting certain foods. Um, and so the focus is mainly on your GI tract, whereas a food allergy is systemic and it can affect many of the systems in your body, your cardiovascular system, your GI tract, your respiratory system. And the food intolerance is more of like a stomach issue. Um, and it does not involve your immune system. But more like deficiencies and sensitivities to food. For example, as I've gotten older in age, I am not able to digest milk like I used to be able to. It makes me uncomfortable in my stomach. And so I do sometimes drink it just because I like it with cereal, but it does not agree with me. My stomach is like, no, you did not. So I try not to do it too terribly often because I do feel that I have an intolerance to the lactose in milk. So the symptoms of a food intolerance are generally less severe than those of a food allergy. Often you'll have like bloating and gas, or maybe a stomach ache, and bowel issues. And then the onset, or like when it happens, is definitely more gradual and can happen over time. Sometimes, hours or even days after you've eaten. Not usually days, I would say. I don't know. I know for my experience, it's hours. If I drink milk or sometimes even have ice cream, like hours later I'll be like bloated and stuff. So definitely more gradual. But common intolerances are lactose, gluten, and histamine. Also food additives like MSG and sulfites and wine and things like that. Um, so just to kind of backtrack to what we've covered, we've talked about dermatitis, which is the fancy word for eczema. We've talked about epinephrine and the importance of epinephrine during an allergic reaction, and we talked about eosinophilic esophagitis a little bit, and we've talked about food allergy versus a food intolerance. And so, okay. And so the last thing I wanted to touch on, as I kind of wrap this live up is grief. And so I feel like I could go on and on about grief, honestly. It is something that has altered the way that I see just life in general now. Um, I mean, I've learned a lot about grief over these past 18 months. I've connected with people over grief in a way that I never thought I would. Um, and I've I've experienced loss before in my life. My first experience with loss was in sixth grade, and I went to school. This little girl that was in my class had cystic fibrosis. And I remember sitting in class with her, and she was just so um, frail and not well. And I just remember thinking, I want to be her friend, um, because she was just such a sweet person. And we were friends. And she lived around the corner from me in my neighborhood. We actually lived in the same replica of house. Like, she had the same house, like, model that I did. And I went to her birthday party, and her brother mowed our lawn. And then she passed away when we were in sixth grade. And that was really hard. And then again, when I was in ninth grade, I was in high school. I had moved from Florida to South Carolina when I was in eighth grade, or when I started eighth grade. And when I started ninth grade, I went to high school with a girl who had cancer, and it had started in her shoulder. And she had like surgery and everything, and chemo and stuff, and had gone into remission. And it came back like as we were starting ninth grade. She got really sick, and she was a very good dear friend of mine. Her name was Marcy, and I would go spend the night with her in the hospital when she was feeling up to it. She wore a hot pink wig to school, and she didn't even care. She was like, I'm bald and I'm gonna wear my wigs. And so she was a super sweet girl, and she too passed away when we were in ninth grade. And so those were kind of my first experiences with loss and death and grief. And of course, I had had family members. As I've gotten older, my family members have passed away. My grandparents, I've had cousins that have passed away. But losing a child is it's um it's like next level sadness. And so I'm learning to, live this new normal type of thing. um like I said earlier when I started the live, like my daughter's food allergies led me to grief. And I'm just here trying to advocate for her and be her voice, because she's not here to do that anymore. So, you know, uh, I'm trying every day to be strong and honor her and just make sure that, you know, her life and her story is not ever forgotten, because she deserves that. And anybody that knew her knew what a little like spitfire, spunk, sweet girl she was. And you just can't forget somebody like that. You can't not talk about them, because her spirit is just it. It's got to be shared. Her life has just got to be shared. And so I'll end this live with an entry in one of Charlotte's writings that she did when she was 11. And I'm going to share it with you, and then I'll wrap it up for today. So give me a second. I'm going to put my glasses on because she wrote in cursive, and it's kind of it's different to read in cursive. She's okay. So the title is Me, I Guess. Hi, my name is Charlotte. I'm 11 and I go by she/her. My favorite color is black, and I have life-threatening food allergies. Let's talk about fears and phobias. I have millions of phobias. Some are hard to explain why. I'm afraid of them. My top 10 phobias are: 1, being kidnapped; 2, someone talking about me; 3, my brother's getting hurt; 4, being alone; 5, someone I love dying; 6, having an allergic reaction; 7, someone teasing me about my allergies; 8, spiders; 9, being away from my parents for a long period of time; and 10, failing a test. Those are just a few. I love skateboarding and scary movies. My closest friends are Princess and Bailey. My favorite song is Sweater Weather by The Neighborhood. Basically, I'm a speck of dust on Earth that is weird, and I have a lot of problems. I like wearing eyeliner and mascara mainly, but I'm still working on good eyeliner though. Anyways, thanks for listening to this nonsense. Bye, I guess. LOL, just kidding. I've got more. I'm a New Year's child. So, I just thought that that was a really sweet little entry that she had made, because she touched on her food allergies as one of her fears. And so, um, but I really want to thank you for joining me today. And I promise I'm not going to get on here and cry every time. It's just, it's just hard to be here without her, and I miss her a lot. And her friends miss her a lot, and
she was just, sunshine and a soul. And so I've got lots more to say, and I'll be back next week with continuing the alphabet and having my little whiteboard and just teaching y'all and educating y'all the best I can from a mom's point of view about life threatening food allergies and their importance. So, everybody, have a great rest of your week. Have a really nice weekend and take care. Thank you.